New poll results are in from an ABC Washington Post poll on Donald Trump, and they are disastrous. Americans give President Donald Trump the lowest 6-month approval rating of any president in polls dating back 70 years. That is the history of polling. The most unpopular president at the 6-month mark ever, for as long as we've been keeping records. Just 36% of Americans polled in a new ABC News Washington Post poll approve of Trump's job performance, down 6 points from his 100-day mark, itself a low. So the 100-day mark was the worst ever. The 6-month mark is the worst ever, but it's even lower than the 100-day mark. So 36 points is terrible for a politician, terrible. Now I'll give you some context here. Here's all the recent presidents that they're referring to and their popularity and lack of popularity. There's only, here, let's show that next graph. There's only 3 that are underwater. So you see like Truman and Kennedy and even Lyndon Johnson, very popular, enormously popular in their first 6 months. The 3 that are underwater are Trump, Clinton in his first term, and Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford was 3 points away in popularity from Donald Trump. That's because he just pardoned Nixon and everyone hated him. Okay, Nixon had done Watergate and he's like, whatever, he made me vice president, I'm pardoning him. And Trump is lower than that guy. Okay, so how does Trump respond to this? First of all, obviously with a tweet. So he says, the ABC Washington Post poll, even though almost 40% is not bad at this time, was just about the most inaccurate poll around election time. Okay, so let's get this right, guys. First of all, it's not almost 40%, it's 36%. So what is the almost? Like, second of all, when you have to say you're almost at 40% in a popularity rating if you're a politician, you're in bad shape, okay? So second of all, is it true or not true? And you say like 40%, not bad. You know what I'm saying? I mean, almost 40, it's not 40 at all. But anyway, okay, well, that indicates that you think it's true. So why are you saying it's inaccurate? By the way, if you actually care about reality, ABC Washington Post poll has been pretty good, actually. It's been among the better polls and had Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote by about 4, she won it by 2%. It was among the more accurate counts of the popularity results. So he's not right about that either. Okay, these things are provable. Look, if you think you're a Trump fan, just go online, see who's telling the truth and who's not about whether ABC and Washington Post poll have been accurate or not. You're not gonna do that because you're gonna go, oh, I just wanna listen to the dear leader. Okay, anyway. So why is he so unpopular and why can't the Democrats take advantage of it? Well, first of all, let's look at Russia because that's the leading topic that the Democrats push and the media pushes. And there, we do have some bad news for Trump. 63% in this poll, produced for ABC News by Langer Research Associates, say it was inappropriate for Trump's son, son-in-law, and campaign manager to have met with a Russian lawyer during the campaign. That's a pretty bad number, 63%. 6 in 10 also think Russia tried to influence the campaign, and among those who say so, 67% think Trump aides helped, similar results in April. So 60% of Americans roughly believe, yeah, the Russians were trying to help Trump, and of that 60%, another 2/3 of that group says, yeah, the Trump aides were looking for Russian help. So that's it, that's why he's unpopular, right? Well, hold the phone, because there's another wrinkle to that side that makes it a lot less clear. As a combined total, the number of Americans who both think that the Russians tried to influence the campaign and that Trump aides helped is 41%. Very similar to the 40% who don't think Russia was involved or are unsure about it. So yeah, they think that, a lot of folks think that Donald Trump Jr. shouldn't have done that meeting. They think that maybe Russia was trying to help Trump overall. But when you get to the bottom line of, hey, look, is this an important thing? Do you think that Russia and Trump colluded? No, the country split. It's not 36-58. I mean, he's losing by 22 points overall. So that question is split. So it doesn't look like Russia's actually doing the damage. So the reason the Democrats harp on Russia is not necessarily because it works that well. As you can see, the polling indicates, no, the country's split on it. It's not particularly effective in attacking Trump. They do it because it's safe. You can just say, Russia, boo. That way they don't have to talk about policy, because their donors would be annoyed if they talked about increasing the minimum wage or going to Medicare for all. So they don't hurt their donors and they try to get voters in a cheap way. Now, by the way, I also think there's a huge problem in the collusion. I think it's real. The Donald Trump Jr. story showed that in a lot of ways. But what you can do is you can do an investigation of that without harping on it nonstop, thinking that it's good politics. Because as I've told you all along, I don't think it's great politics. But for the reasons of truth, you should pursue it. So if it's not Russia, what is it? Why is Trump polling so low? Well, first of all, they don't have a great impression, Americans, of his competence. They say just 38% say he's making significant progress towards his goals. 55% think he's not. So that's not a good number. They think you're not getting anything done. Okay, now how about strength? Now you'd think Trump is always talking about, oh, I'm strong, I'm gonna make a strong move, right? No, apparently I don't think he's very strong at all. In his relationship to the world, let's show you the next graph here. Under Trump, US world leadership has gotten stronger is only 27%. 46% think that we have gotten weaker under Trump, 27 to 46. And 23% say about the same. So if you're a leader that prides yourself on strength, those are miserable numbers. So, okay, not competent, not strong. How's he doing on the world stage overall? Let's go to that graph. As you look here, it says, do you trust Trump to negotiate on US's behalf with other world leaders? 34% say we trust him more. 66% say we trust him less. Terrible numbers. We do not trust him to negotiate on our behalf. Remember, his whole thing was art of the deal, man, I'm the best negotiator. Well, 2/3 of Americans think you kind of suck at it. So these are significant problems, and we haven't even gotten to the mother lode yet. And the mother lode is healthcare. So on his party's signature campaign issue, healthcare, Americans by a 2-to-1 margin prefer Obamacare over the Republican plan to replace it. 50 to 24%. Another quarter either wants something else entirely, 17%, or undecided, 9%. By the way, that 17% number, I'm surprised is not larger, because it's so easy to go, I don't like Obamacare or the Republican plan. Give me something magical that's better. And by the way, maybe it's not magical. Maybe there's something like Medicare for all that is much, much better. And in fact, polls great, but polls at 58%, better than either one of the plans. But overall, no, most people have made up their mind. They're like, look, I don't know about the other plans. I do know that Obamacare is way better than the Republican proposal. 50 to 24. There's a giant lead for Obamacare. What happened, Republicans? I thought Obamacare was terrible. I thought the American people hated Obamacare. No, it turns out they hate you way, way worse. But still, the Democratic Party doesn't win anything. Look, one more thing on policy, and I'll tell you why the Democrats are not winning. Medicaid versus taxes. The Republican plan cuts Medicaid by over $700 billion. And lucky for rich people, it gives it in tax cuts to the rich. So the American people, do they agree with that idea? Well, let's take a look at this next graph. So what's more important for the federal government to do? 63% say provide coverage for low-income Americans, not just even middle class, just for low-income Americans, 63%. Only 27% say cut taxes. And that question did not say cut taxes on the rich, did not say cut taxes on big business, it just said cut taxes. And even so, only 27% chose that. The Republicans do not stand for what Americans believe in, not remotely close. The only thing that Trump is doing okay on, and this is very relevant to his rankings, my God, when this goes south, how low can Trump go? So the only thing he does okay on is what's the state of the economy? And there, by a margin of, here, let's take a look at this, 43 to 41, they approve of his handling of the economy. But there's also a big number there that's not sure, that's still waiting, the jury's out. Well, that number is the correct one, the folks that are saying the jury's out. Look, the economy is not in shambles right now, so fair is fair. So I think that 43-41 makes some degree of sense. Now, is it because of what Trump has done? No, he's riding off of what Obama has done so far. About a year from now, we'll see what Trump has done after he's had about 18 months in office. My guess is that'll be an even worse disaster. And he's going to the 20s. I said literally from day one, he's going to the 20s in popularity. But if the economy gets ripped apart, he might go in the teens. He might get the Chris Christie numbers. So the fact that the economy is not falling apart, again, largely because he hasn't been able to change what Obama's done in 6 months, and Obama had added 15 million jobs. That's why he's barely hanging in there. But yet, the Republicans have won every special election. Now I know they're mainly in Republican districts, and that's of course very relevant. But you would think that they would have been able to pull out 1 or 2 victories like the one in North Georgia. Hillary did better than the Democratic candidate in the special election in that district. What the hell's going on? And by the way, one more thing that's devastating for the Republicans and Trump. So the Republicans overwhelmingly still approve of Trump, about 82% or so. Democrats overwhelmingly hate Trump. His approval is like 11% with Democrats. How about independence? See, that's the most important thing. You want to win elections, you got to keep independence. So maybe he's holding independence. No, he's not. Independence popularity rating for Trump is only 32%. They don't like him. That's less than a third of the independents that like him. That is a guaranteed formula for disaster and electoral losses. Now Trump's not up again until 2020 if he makes it that far, but you did have the special elections at the national level. The Democrats won none of them. So what is going on? There's only one graph that explains it. It's right here. So the Democratic Party stands for what? For people saying they stand for something. By the way, that's just something, anything. Only 37% of the country thinks that. 52% say the Democratic Party stands just against Trump. That's all they are. They're an empty party, and they oppose Trump because they're on the opposite side. Only a little bit more than a third of the country thinks that they stand for anything at all. So the biggest ally Trump has is the Democratic Party. If it wasn't for his miserable failure of opponents, he'd get crushed. On the day of the election, his popularity wasn't any better. It was 37%. How could a guy sitting at 37% win an election? That's because his opponents are the only people in the country that are worse. Democratic Party, it is so clear what you have to do. If you actually care about winning electorally, and much more importantly, winning on policy, but you don't care about those things. You know what you do? You pound on healthcare, you ask for higher minimum wage so that people who are working really hard can actually make a decent living. You look out for people that want to have the American dream for their kids. You do the free education for college. You would do all these things that are enormously popular. And look at how popular Medicaid is, let alone Medicare for all, which is sky high in popularity. Yet, Democratic leaders, where are you? With the exception of Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and a couple of others in the Senate, and now 130 some odd congressmen in the House, now the Justice Democrats and the National Nurses United pushed a petition asking for it. Only those guys are for Medicare for all, but the leadership, nowhere to be found. If you were looking for why Donald Trump and the Republicans are not getting killed in the ballot box yet, you have your answer. It's the establishment Democratic Party leadership. Look, I believe that the current Democratic incumbents should be primaried. I think that their record of failure is record-breaking. They lost to Donald Trump, they've lost the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and 69 out of 99 state legislatures. They almost literally cannot get any worse. So, but when we go and say there should be primaries of Democrats, they say, why are you trying to hurt the Democratic Party? Are you insane? These are the people hurting the Democratic Party. They can't find a way to beat a horribly incompetent, greatly disliked president like Donald Trump. So if Democratic Party as it exists today, if you can't do the job, for God's sake and for the country's sake, step aside, Butch, step aside. You know what my answer is, it's justicedemocrats.com. Go to justicedemocrats.com/win and become part of the effort, man. Because if you let these Democrats run against the Republicans again, they're the only people in the country who could lose to Trump and these Republicans who are greatly disliked. So look, if you got a better answer, have at it, Hoss. I'm all for it. The only thing we know now is Trump is in a terrible shape. And the only thing worse than Trump, according to the American people, both at the ballot box and to some degree in the polls here, is the current establishment of the Democratic Party. Stand for something. If you're gonna be a progressive or pretend to be a progressive, at least act like it and show us that you're gonna fight for progressive priorities. If not, step aside and let real progressives fight against these Republicans, and we'll show you what we can do. JusticeDemocrats.com. Help us build independent media together. TYTnetwork.com/join.